Recruitment is marketing and how to attract better people to your business. We're in for a real treat today. We've got the founder of a full service recruitment agency with an in-depth understanding and experience of all aspects of recruitment based on 36 years in this sector. This morning we're joined with Jayne Johnson from Better People. Good morning, Jayne. How are you today?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
Good. Yeah, we're all good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. First of all, let me say thank you for joining us today. And you know, recruitment's a big topic at the moment. It's a crucial topic for lots of businesses out there trying to attract the right people to their businesses. So should we kick off with some questions around the landscape and how it's evolved, you know, into where potentially candidates today are now evaluating the business as potential employers? So, you know, candidates are actually more likely interviewing the employer these days. What are the biggest changes you've seen?
Well, I think we find ourselves in what us recruiters call a candidates market, and that means that there's more jobs than there are candidates to do them. More candidates with the right skills. We've never had high unemployment figures in the Thames Valley, and now with lots of people left the workforce during COVID. You know, I think a lot of people decided to take early retirement, and so there's a big swathe of skills that have been lost to the workplace. That's one thing. Also, people expect very much more from their employers, so they're looking at a tick list of, you know, what are they offering. So I think that's one of the main reasons that employers are now finding themselves in the position to have to compete for good candidates, which means that and I know we're going to go on to talk about this later, but it does mean that as employers, we do need to think more positively about what we're doing to attract candidates. You know, it's what in recruitment we call the applicant attraction piece, and it becomes more and more important in today's recruitment market.
Yeah, it's very interesting you say about the sort of the tick list and things. You know, recruits these days are looking for that company to offer them something, aren't they? You know, what's given them their sense of purpose and things. What factors do you think have driven this shift from sort of a traditional recruitment process to a more candidate-centric approach now?
I think because every candidate going for an interview has more offers to choose from.
Okay.
You know, and I think that enables them to weigh up a lot of different factors. You know, and they can. You know, I've spoken to candidates who've come back to me after they've thought about accepting an offer that was another $2,000 a year, but then they've come back to me and said, well, actually, we kind of like the idea of working for your client more than we like this one. We like the family feel, we like the flexibility, we like the fact that they came straight back to us after interview. You know, all of those things that are very easy to put in place and to put right, and to adjust. That you know, that we can lose people to if we're not trying hard enough to make our employer brand more appealing. Really, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It sort of goes back to that Maslow hierarchy of needs, that sense of belonging and things. People are looking for that sense of purpose. You know, what can the employer offer me as an individual? What's my contribution? How can I progress? How can I grow with the company?
Yeah, and candidates do look at things like, you know, B Corp accreditation and, you know, or Green Lab or, you know, things like that. They also look at, you know, their sustainability policies. They look at, you know, what do they do for charity? What do they, you know, what supplier standards do they have? Are they family friendly? Do people stay there a long time? You know, candidates are evaluating all of those things these days.
That's a really good point about the sustainability and the sort of charity contributions and things. So what should employers do or businesses do more of to have that credential and have that sort of value and identity piece?
Well, I think going for these major accreditations and things can be really costly, and it is quite onerous for a small business. But we can take a much more kind of things on a local level, and we can, I don't know, we could have a charity fun day once a year and have a nominated charity that everybody in the business has voted for. You know, like, I don't know, it's always going to be a local charity. Here's the 10 that we've shortlisted. Everybody in the company's got to vote for the charity that they want to support. And then we'll put that on our website and and then we'll nominate, we'll have a day, a company fun day where we raise money for charity, for example. And then those photographs can be used to go on your website, so that people, not only is that building retention and loyalty and a sense of fun within the business, but then people who are thinking of coming to your business, the candidates that you want to attract, can look at that and see how wholesome and fun and how people-centered that business is. And it's not just saying that they've got a vision and saying that they've got values. Here are the people in the business living it and having fun doing it. And so things like that are relatively easy to afford. You just need somebody with an iPhone to do those. You need to be prepared to plan it. And people love planning things like that, and being part of that kind of thing. And maybe the MD dressing up as, I don't know, a clown or something on the day. It's all good. It's all good stuff.
It is good stuff, and it's an interesting point around sort of building that brand awareness and things. The brand doesn't necessarily have to all be about the service that you offer or the industry you're in, does it? It can be about the brand, as in the people you are, the culture you've got in the organisation, and things like that. So
yeah, and also people aware of the work that you do. Sometimes sites can be very much very technical, very widgets and pieces of metal or whatever, but let's make it about this is maybe have some people stories on your website that you can tell. Like, this is Jayne. She joined us as an apprentice 4 years ago, and here is her demonstrating our latest award-winning machine to David, who's our new client. And things that demonstrate what you're doing in your business and how you live the day to day, and what the journey might be for a candidate joining. That's another thing that candidates are looking for. Where can I see myself in 5 years? Is there progression here? What kind of progression could that be? Would they support me to study, for example, if I wanted to? And not all firms can afford to do that, but if you can, and if you might, and if you would, then put that somewhere. Put it in a story. Put it on your website. Have a page on your website that says what makes us a great place to work. What our employees say about us, or even a tab that just says our people, and put all this good fun stuff into it. Yeah.
So so that's a really a nice way of building that sort of employer brand and the type of people you are. What about the value proposition that they offer as an employee from a sort of more tangible aspect? What can businesses do to attract better talent or top talent in the sort of new paradigm of recruitment?
I think so when we're attracting talent, we need to look at. So we've started with a job description, and we know that the role that we want the candidate to fulfill, and we know that the job that we want them to do, and that's all fine, and that's usually a very technical, very dry document. But we need, and any marketing people listening to this will know, we need to write a compelling advertisement with a good call to action. And once again, we're incorporating these sense of values. It's going to be a document that. It's not a document, that sounds too dry, but it's got to be something that's going to attract people, and it's going to make us stand out over other employers. And I always ask candidates when I interview them, what made you apply for this job over others? And they'll say, well, I like the look of the advert. I like the sound of the company. So there may be, if you're recruiting for some categories of staff, it's a fairly generic role, or so it would seem, I don't know, like could be a senior administrator. But if you can make your job stand out, because you don't have to tell fib, it's the truth. Award-winning company in beautiful rural setting is seeking an office manager to replace or as a new role, and but it's about making it easy to read. It's about making it accessible, and it's about putting it in the places that your candidates are going to go as well, and also having so you put as much information into the advert as you can that describes your company as well as you possibly can, as well as a very brief description of the overall purpose of the job, and what your candidates will have. And it's always very nice to put that you may have some or all of these skills, but either way, we'd like to hear from you if this is of interest to you. Because what you want to do is you also want to attract people with the right attitude, I think, as much as anything. And interestingly, somebody said to me years ago that well, not that long ago, but when we're preparing documents for or written content for online use, we need to bear in mind that the average reading age of our audience is, we should target it for the average reading age of a 9-year-old.
Okay.
And of course, that sounds a bit shocking, first of all, but when you think that people are looking at these job adverts anywhere, on the bus, on the train, in the car, sitting at traffic lights, and so our advert doesn't need to be, pages and pages and pages of every single minutiae of the job description. It needs to be a compelling, punchy, attractive document that profiles our organisation well.
Yeah, I
so that was
suppose
a lot.
there's an element of also not scaring people off, isn't it? If it's too wordy, too complicated, too analytical, sometimes actually the self-sabotaging ourselves looks at something that might say, "Oh, I can't do that," not really fully understanding what the role is.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that we hold back on detail, because as soon as somebody's expressed an interest in the position or the role, and you're calling them to interview, then at that point you would send them the full job description. So you're not going to waste your time unless somebody's seen the whole job description. And I also think that companies, as part of your outward employer branding and things, your recruiter is your recruiter is one of your suppliers, and you need to give your recruiter enough information to be able to market you effectively, to go out to the market to do this. And your recruiter will be a master at creating this compelling document, because they want to attract people, because they've got skin in the game. They want the right people to come through, and they'll be, when they speak to the candidates, they'll be explaining to the candidates what the job is that the person's going to be doing. So there's no danger of the individual not really understanding what the role is. You're just summarizing it attractive.
It's kind of there's two aspects, isn't there? There's the marketing piece, as you say, sort of identifying your target market, so what the job role is that you want for the organization, then identify the target market of where you're going to then go and approach that type of person. So what marketing platform, where do they hang out, that sort of thing, how you word the advert to then appeal to that age, that profile of person. And then the next bit is starting conversations. It's almost like a sales process, isn't it? It's actually engaging with somebody with interest and then taking them through the steps, adding a bit more detail at each layer, and taking them through to ultimately an interview with the respective employer.
Yes, absolutely. And I think at every stage we have to maintain that positivity and that element of promotion, if you like. The first engagement with the candidate, that candidates are going to be, we've established that there aren't as many of them available as there were, so they're going to be approached by more people, and so even that initial approach is going to be measured, and if there are things within that within the role that are absolutes, like I've got a client that needs people to start at 7:45 in the morning, and they're in an extremely rural location, and that is not at all flexible. Right. So that sense, when that would be, if they were reaching out for themselves, that would be the very first thing that they would say. We have no flexibility around the start time, and you do have to have your own transport. And if that doesn't go any further, well then fine. That's a fair and open.
It's a deselection element, isn't it? It's filtering all the way through. So in terms of the recruitment process, how important is it to have transparency around that processes, and what sort of steps can businesses take to foster that open communication and trust with the candidates, build that trust and communication quickly?
I think, once again, if you can include in the advert that there's likely to be that there's going to be 2 interviews, I think you if that's what your process is going to be, if you don't dream of advertising a job without a salary. It just doesn't work. It makes people suspicious. I mean, why would you not want to tell people what the salary is? And unfortunately, people come up with the worst conclusion, and that is that they're being secretive because they don't want people in their company to see what the salary is. They want to get away with paying as little as possible. And yes, none of us want to pay over the odds, but let's be fair and open. And you can advertise a salary with a band. You can say the from and the to, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. Group people at a slightly lower bracket who might have the right attitude but need a bit more training, or So I think that process is that those 2 things are absolutely key.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It's kind of, as soon as you see something with no price, it's the same again in marketing, isn't it? If there's a service or something on a website, if you don't see a price and you have to go through certain layers to get some information, it's almost too easy just to say, I won't bother, I'll move on to the next one.
Yeah, look, there's all here that are priced. So yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very good. So in terms of candidates, are, they're increasingly looking for that cultural fit and the fit of the company values. So how can the business align their recruitment strategies to ensure that the alignment between the candidate expectations and their culture is a match, or that they find the right people that match their culture?
I think people have to, the companies, if they've written themselves a vision, or they've got some brand values, or those kind of things, they need to find a way to demonstrate that they're living those. And how do they do that? I think people need to be told at interview stage what the process is going to be. So if you're successful with us, this is what we would do, and this is how your probation would look, and we would schedule some activities like this, and you would have an appointment in your diary on a weekly, monthly process through your probation, which gives you the opportunity to give us feedback, because we value our new starter feedback. Anybody in a business that doesn't listen to their new starters is crazy, but give them, if that's what you're saying your culture is, and that's what you're saying your values are, then make sure that it's established and set out, and make sure that your managers know that this is how they need to onboard somebody. Clients lose candidates through the onboarding process because there isn't an onboarding process.
Yeah.
They lose them during their probation. If you imagine that there's all these candidates that are all wonderful and very marketable, and we've made an offer to a candidate to join our business, and then they come on board, and they didn't have a laptop on their first day, they parked in the wrong space and upset somebody, they didn't know where to get their lunch, they put their coat on the wrong peg, and suddenly they're getting a call from a recruiter that they were speaking to 2 weeks ago, and this recruiter saying, well, do you know, so-and-so, they're still looking, they're still saying that you were the best candidate, they'll go. And it happens. You need to, your onboarding is very important. You need to be living that. You need to be making sure that you're doing what you can to keep them. So you're telling them up front, which is lovely, we're going to do all of these wonderful things, and then you are actually doing it, and you're actually saying this is how it's going to look, and making sure that you stick to it. Yeah.
There's some really sort of key elements of that, what you've just said. I think signposting has come up a few times, that positioning piece, letting people know what's going to happen, because that takes away some of that sort of fear of the unknown, doesn't it? And it's really crucial to making people feel comfortable, warm and welcome. The other aspect is that vision and values thing. How many businesses don't have those documented, clear idea of what their vision is, what their company stands for, what the culture fit is, to be able to communicate it through the process and the marketing strategy. And then you're right, induction. Once you start, it's all about fulfilling on your what you've said you're going to do, and things like that. I think we've all probably been in a new job somewhere at some point, and the first day is really nerve-wracking. For everybody who's in that position, you're looking for almost reasons why you don't want to like it, because we think like that. Human beings are wired that way. So taking some,
it's not familiar.
Yeah, some really, really valuable lessons. I think there's definitely a case that recruitment expertise is a skill. It's it's an experienced skill that you learn over people skills, interview skills, questioning skills. There's so many facets to recruiting to get the right people, and it's such a costly mistake to make sometimes, isn't it? You get the wrong person, or the wrong person doesn't fit the business. So there's definitely value in having experts help. You go through that process, having the structure right, and sort of talk it all the way through. What is it that you do that you would say sets you apart from, some of the sort of mainstream or the majority of recruiters out there?
Well, I think it's the time that I take with people. It's the time that I take with the client up front. I go and visit them. I get to know their business. They're usually interested in showing me around their business. They show me, so I get to know all of that. I get to know how flexible they can be about start times. I get to know what the parking's like, what the public transport's like, what the future might look like for this candidate. You know, where other people in the business have come from, who's going to fit. And then I go away and I create those compelling adverts, hopefully, and that people apply, and I interview them twice, and I'm just very thorough, and I brief them about the client, and I say, this is a great place to work because you know, it's and I give it warts and all, but very positively, and then I present them for interview so that they know exactly what it is that they're going for. And I just make it a very watertight process. At the end of the day, we're dealing with people, you know, and that's risky. But we do as much as we can to kind of mitigate that risk and keep checking in, you know, make sure that we get the feedback from the client very quickly so that we know, so that if they like the candidate, we're not going to lose them in sort of long waiting times. And communication, you know, I've learned that the communicating and speaking to candidates on the day before their interview, you know, sometimes we can lose people. Any recruiter listening to this will bear me out on this. You know, you can get the most wonderful candidate and they just don't turn up for interview. But if you speak to them the day before and you're feeling that, and they say, yeah, no, well, I'll go along and I'll have a look, and you know, and so it's about reassuring them at that point about, you know, or finding out that actually they're not interested anymore and cancelling, you know. So it's just knowing and ticking the boxes at all of those stages, you know. And
some subtle little steps, isn't it? Like that fear of the interview tomorrow. Again, we've all been in that situation where we you know, we might almost really want it so much that we're fear of failure or of not doing a great job. So actually, it's easier to not go. So that confidence and that comfort to Yeah, and
people are fearful about the silliest things. You know, they might have So it's a people job, and it's making sure that you just tick all of those boxes, really. Yeah.
So you're taking the time to really understand the organisation, the people in the organisation, and then taking the time through the process to cherry pick the candidates that suit those sort of cultural needs, the business needs, the job function needs.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, that because we're in a candidate shortage, and because the process that I go through is one of being of refining, clients won't get lots of CVs from me. That's what they pay me for, isn't it? You know, so I'm going to send 2, or if I can find 3 amazing ones, then great. But yeah, I mean, I've got clients that will see one candidate and hire because they're comfortable. That's what they do.
So ultimately, it's saving the business a load of time going through that process of trying to do that all themselves and spending time on lots of CVs and the process and deselection and interviewing and things like that. Very good. So I think you know, recruitment is definitely changed over the last few years. You know, there's clearly a need to have top talent in an organisation. So I think finding the right recruiter to work with you is crucial. So it's kind of, as a business owner, you know, you said it earlier, that they're part of your supplier list. They're actually part of your team, aren't they? They're almost part of your management team to help you find the right people for the organisation. So I think spending a bit of time to find the right person to help you to get the right people is going to be crucial to finding the right talent and then retaining them. That's been really sorry, go on.
I said, and it's great as a recruiter when you're working with a growing business and they come back to you as their success builds, and they want more, and the people that you've hired have been promoted, and you know, that's just the best. Yeah,
it's all part of growth, isn't it? So that's been really useful. Thank you ever so much for your time today. Where would our members of the community, the No Limits community, go to find you, learn more about your services, and get in touch?
So they can go to my website, which is Better People, www.betterpeoplelimited, or they can connect with me on LinkedIn and send me a message, and I'll happily reach out for a virtual coffee or whatever it is that they'd like. So thank you very much, David.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Thank you.